Hello, Bernico. I'm currently an electronic hardware engineer at GE Aviation, where I work on design and test solutions for electronic hardware for aircraft engines. This presentation is for the Spring 2019 course of Trusted Embedded Systems led by Dr. Carla Purdy at University of Cincinnati. In this short discussion, we'll be talking about the need for increased security in smart toys. Before we dive in, we need to first define what exactly is a smart toy. In our case, smart toys, connected toys, or tech toys will all be used interchangeably to describe the same things. Smart toys have data connectivity via Internet, Wi-Fi, and/or Bluetooth, sometimes multiple. They usually collect user data in the day-to-day play, and they usually have a terms of service agreement for the interface, whether it's software or hardware. The benefits of smart toys are interactive and they encourage social and emotional learning among the children using them. Children are also offered the opportunity for personalized and creative play where they can choose what it is that they want to do with their own devices. Throughout the history of toys, they had to deal with the risks that come with their children using them. In the days of old, parents only had to worry about sharp edges, lead-based paints, and choking hazards. And while they still have to deal with those in contemporary toys, they also have to take on the risks now of dealing with carcinogenic plastics, magnet ingestion, and possibly the most dangerous of all, data connectivity. When it comes to data connectivity, parents assume a lot of risk when it comes to their children. The Family Online Safety Institute recently did a survey, and the results showed that 70% of parents are comfortable with their children using smart toys. If you look at the included figure, we can infer that the increasing trend in sales of these devices correlates well with parental comfort levels. Parents also use data connectivity in other ways that might put their family at risk. When parents share on social media things such as the number of kids or their birthdays, they're giving out some possible clues to assailants as to what they could use. Even worse, though, parents oversharing on social media and sharing details such as when they're out on a date night and the kid might be home alone, or sharing pictures of kids and check-ins to location that they frequently go to and exposing them as potential targets. Part of understanding the risk of toys and how children might become targets, it's important to know how the data is being used and who is using it. In fact, when connected devices are used, private data is transmitted to other users or networks. In some instances, this private information was knowingly sent for purposes other than play use by a child. Some of this information that's collected can be separated into a couple categories. The basic data connected by most devices is username, age, and gender. These are pretty innocuous in and of themselves. When we get into the more complex data, things that include personal interest, GPS location, and web history, now we get to a point where people are collecting things to know more about a child. And as we get into the sensitive data, we start to have things transmitted like pictures, video, and audio recordings. Very quickly, privacy and safety should become easily recognizable as things that are being threatened by these devices when not used properly or aware of the risks. Here we look at a few that are examples of known threats when it comes to the safety of children. In the first case, we have an insecure data connection that allowed unintended user access to both control and intercept data from the toy. In another case, there was an insecure database that released personal information for over 6 million children as users. A third case, there was a toy that was designed to play back voice recordings from parents to the children. This toy was hacked and used to control another smart device in the home that was voice activated. The two devices were used together to order something from the internet. Perhaps the most Orwellian Big Brother example, and the scariest, is that one of the lines of toys was sending data including pictures and audio to a defense contractor who is also a pioneer in voice detect applications. I'll leave it to you to figure out how it could possibly be used against people other than the children. For the most part, previous examples seem harmless enough in themselves, but I'd like to play out a hypothetical scenario that exploits a combination of the previous examples. It starts by an assailant gaining access to age, picture, and GPS location of a child. They can then use social media to determine that parents are out on a date and that the child is home alone. Utilizing a brute force attack, they're able to gain access to a voice playback toy and to pose as a parent. They can then give instructions to meet at their favorite park that's nearby their home. While unlikely, this grim scenario that obviously ends in abduction is quite possible using today's technology. So the question of the lines of defense when it comes to keeping children safe from these kinds of risks. Obviously, the first one is parents. Parents control the purchase, use, and the assumed risks of having these devices in their homes. Toy makers also have a stake in this. They're responsible for understanding the data that's collected, how it's used, and how to properly secure it. And lastly, we have government, whose job is to put regulations in place for child safety. When it comes to parents as a defense against these risks, we've already discussed that they control the purchase, use, and assumed risk of connected toys. Part of the problem, though, is that parents aren't adequately aware of these risks at all. Most terms of service agreements for these toys and their applications use legal language. One study showed that most parents either skip through or don't even understand the terms of service that they're agreeing to. Another problem with parents is that they're not scared enough. When we go back to the study we discussed saying that 70% of parents were comfortable with their children using these devices, the study went on to explain some of the risks to the parents that were explained in this presentation. Surprisingly, 63% of parents were still comfortable with their children using these kinds of devices after hearing the apparent risks. When it comes to toy making kids against these threats, we've discussed that they're responsible for the collection, use, and security of data. One of the problems here is that application security has been a known problem amongst these toy makers. A recent study showed that less rigorous security was used on children's applications than that of their adult counterparts. Another problem with toy makers has been network security. As we saw in the examples, poor network security has already left children's information vulnerable. Some companies have already admitted that they have lacked security when it comes to data taken from smart toys.